this as well. Several of you brought this up to a degree, but I think it was knocked home by one comment in particular. It's sometimes really fun just to watch another person as they play. Not watch a person play as in watch the feed of what's going on, but watch them as they play. Now, this could be any number. Maybe you watch a parent. They're watching. You watch them play because they're not familiar with video games, so watching them play is comical. Or if you're a parent watching a child, you watch someone that's a child play that you think would be funny because they're seeing something for the first time, or they're reacting, or whatever. The pure innocence of their kind of enjoyment of the concept is cool. Or they're learning, or their control, their level of control and interactivity, all interesting, right? But watching someone else play can be just as fun, I think, in many ways as playing a game. And again, this is one of the reasons why we always made we made a very good point that during the marathons we want you guys to be able to see us while we're doing what we're doing, because that adds to the whole overall enjoyment of the process. When you guys see us jumping all over the place because we can't get past a particular point in Lester the Unlikely, or one of us is blindfolded and trying to make it through a level of Mario Kart without crashing, or a level in the original Mario, for example, or Super Mario World, being directed only by another person's voice, that's fun. You get to see us while we're trying to make something happen on the screen, and you become kind of a part of that process as well. So, excuse me, those were kind of the, now we have some terms. Now we have a couple of the overarching arguments. Let's get into a few more of the specifics of things that you guys brought up. Marky's mentioned, it's more about the personal interactions with games when you're watching, many times, more than it is the game itself. This goes directly to what I just mentioned with one of the overarching kind of arguments that got made repeatedly. Marky's, I think, really brings to mind the old adage that it's not what you do, but who you're with that really matters. I think that's absolutely 100% true, and it really resonates with me. As someone that spends time with people that I like, watching them play video games can be just as enjoyable in many cases as it is for me to play by myself or in front of others as well. The shared time that we spend together is fun, is an experience in and of itself, is different than us actually handling the controller or us just watching someone play, for example. And one of the reasons why several of you don't like Let's Plays is because you don't know the people. You don't have a kind of relationship with them. So watching someone that you know and that you're in the same room with, for example, or you're even directing, is fun. You find that to be enjoyable. I think that's a great insight, and I think the more I thought about it, the more I think I agree. This one is really cool. Zork86 talked about several things, but one of the things that he mentioned was this particularly the outrun, okay, where the car flips and the girlfriend falls, or girlfriend, wife, main bitch, whatever she is, falls out of the Ferrari, and it's kind of what develops out of this is the narrative that develops outside of the narrative when you are playing with people. You can always make up additional stories on your own about what things that are going on in video games with or without the narrative, right? Maybe you make up this entire narrative in your mind when you play Mario Brothers that, Mario is actually from a broken household where his dad never really loved him or paid attention to him or was very proud of what he did. And, as a result, he and Luigi really grew up in thankless households that really gave them a drive to kind of do something very big. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass here, right, guys? But the point is, you could make that case. You could make a narrative in your mind that you just kind of went to. But I don't think that's ever as cool or as fun as what Zork86 is talking about, where all of a sudden the narrative outside the narrative that your friend embodies or does can even affect the game. So there's that level of interactivity again changes. So Zork86 is talking about how his friend is now making comments as the disgruntled, bitchy girlfriend in the car in Outrun. So just coming up with ridiculous one-liners and stupid backstory and crap while you're playing, and all of a sudden you're laughing so hard you absolutely can't get past the particular point, or you're crashing more, or whatever. Folks, that happened to me so much. Rue, myself, we did that all the time, where we'd have to stop, we'd have to pause the game and stop because we were going crazy laughing so hard. That is the kind of interactivity I'm talking about inside of a game. And I think that's a great example. These narratives develop outside of the narrative. I tweeted the other day that, any of you that have ever played Super Bomberman had, different terminology for different kinds of games. We had something called the poopy disease, where you hit the little disease, you get the little disease power up, and it just made you drop bombs continuously. There's no reason that should inherently be called the poopy disease. We just called it the poopy disease. So we'd be running around, don't get the poopy disease. Anyone listening to that would be laughing so hard because of the ridiculousness of that comment in general, not knowing what it meant. But at the same time, it's uniquely very funny. It's a kind of narrative outside the narrative. Here's this little Bomberman guy, he catches this disease and now he can't stop crapping bombs. It's hilarious. So I love that. I love that particular comment on the week. I thought that was great. The Beer Ninja talked about, really watching games that you can't yourself beat in order to kind of fill in the gaps, or at least see somebody do it, maybe for help. See somebody play a game that you're never really going to play. Several of you mentioned this as well. The idea of doing something, getting something out of the game that you yourself can't get, or putting yourself in situations that you yourself can't put yourself into by virtue of not having time, skill, the necessary, I guess, system to play it, the technology to be able to play a game. You can do all that. YouTube, all these Let's Players, they make that possible. So you can just jump online, catch somebody playing a game that you don't even have the system for, but you can watch them play, so you can at least have some kind of the experience as to what the game is like. I think that's really cool. And you start to feel in ways when you start watching the game, like somebody asks you, hey, have you played this? It's like, well, I haven't really played it, but I've seen someone play it and I know what happens, so, yeah, kind of, right? You have this kind of proxy thing going on, and I think that's really cool. I Feel Asleep mentioned feeling involved in the outcome. This is my favorite comment of the week, guys. So congratulations to you, I Feel Asleep, for being a new commenter. That gave me a great comment for the week, my favorite. Here's the reason why, guys. I think this gets to the crux of it all. This is why control versus interactivity is important. That's why I made that distinction right off the bat. Because maybe you don't have control over the outcome as someone that's observing the game in the same room, right? But if you have some kind of interaction with the people that are in the game, you feel like you as a cohesive unit, as a team, came to the table and beat a challenge or beat a game or something, right? In other words, you made it happen some way, somehow, together. You are tied, you have skin in the game to the outcome of the game. That, I think, is the most important thing we have to look at. Either you get enjoyment out of that, or you don't. I think that is the litmus test right out in front. I Feel Asleep knocked it out of the park. That, to me, is the whole crux of what we're talking about. Twilight Link 20XDX talked about, is it really about watching the game, or is it about watching someone overcome a challenge? I had to think about this. That's a great comment, or even question, really. It's really what it is. What a great question. I racked my brain thinking about this one, and the reason why is because, most of the time, and I've had so much fun doing this kind of thing. Like, say, I'll give you an example. Super Monkey Ball. We just got together one night on the GameCube and said, we're not going to sleep until we beat this freaking game, and we just sat there all night and we just passed the controller around until somebody beat the game. Finally, we did it. But was it about watching someone overcome that particular challenge, or was it really about kind of actually watching the game that was fun? For me, what I got to step back to is talk about that interactivity and talk about the cohesive nature of a group coming together to solve a problem. For me, it was much less about beating the game, but the fact that we all did it together as a community and that we had some kind of part in it as well is very, very important. So for me, I think that's a huge part of it all. I think to me that means it's not necessarily about overcoming a challenge or watching someone do that. It's about doing it together as a team. That's the most important part of it all. Maybe you guys feel differently. That's just how I feel. So those are your contributions. I think you can probably guess where I'm going with this one, guys. My thought on this is that you can absolutely have as much fun watching a game as you can playing a game. And the reason why is because of all the things you guys just said. But mostly, because for me, it's important to feel involved in the outcome. I feel asleep's comment again. Feeling involved in the outcome of a game is awesome. But I'll tell you a couple other reasons why I think this is cool. I have purchased games before because of the fact that I have watched other people play them so much and thought, man, that's cool as hell. I need to go get that. So for example, I watched a ton of Let's Plays around Minecraft, which were so awesome that eventually I said, screw this, I don't want to watch somebody else do it. I'm going to go do it myself. And I went and bought the game. And now I'm to the point where I'm like, man, now I could do some cool Let's Plays on Minecraft, right? So there are funny things going on there with that. I think watching that game watching that person play was so much fun that it made me want to go out and buy the game itself. Using gameplay as promotional material, that's something that almost always happens. You see the new gameplay trailer come out, right? And it is something where, they actually want to show you the experience because they feel like if they show you the experience, you'll go, wow, that's really fun, I want to buy that game, right? One of the conversations I had at PAX was with an independent developer of the game Octodad. And his concern was when because the game was actually a thesis project, when it actually came out, everyone was making YouTube videos. By the way, the game is absolutely hilarious to watch, so go watch some YouTubes of Octodad. It's absolutely hilarious. But they were worried. The guys that made the game were very, very worried because they thought, wow, this game might only be fun to watch. Maybe it's no fun to play. If that isn't an example right there, that a game can be just as fun to watch as it is to play, then I don't know what else I could possibly say. It was so great that happened at PAX because I knew as soon as I had that conversation, it was going to make the Weekly Wringer. I'll throw another thing out there though. Watching can also be painful. You ever had somebody jump onto a system that doesn't normally play games and you watch them play a game and you feel really sorry for them and really bad they can't get anywhere and you try to help them or make them feel better when they can't do something? I'll never forget one of the first times I ever saw my dad pick up an NES controller and try to play the first level of Mario Brothers. I think he died every way that you could possibly die in the first 15 seconds of playing Super Mario Brothers as possible. And he was laughing and having fun with it. I'm sure he had a great time. I'm sure he doesn't even remember this as a bad experience. But as all of us, myself, my brothers, sitting around the TV watching him, we were all just like, oh, this is so bad because we want him to do better. We want him to feel better about this. We want him to do, we wanted to have some success with it and learn that this is a cool thing that we're doing playing these games. And it just kind of never developed that way. So it can be painful to watch people play games. And I think that's an important thing too because it elicits response. It pulls something out of you to watch video games, and I think that's a very important part of this whole process. So there you go. I think that wraps up our conversation pretty well. I love the conversation, and I think that my initial reaction to the question was going to be that when I sat in front of the camera this week and talked about it, it was going to be, no, of course not. It's much more fun to play games than it is to watch them. I got to tell you, after really thinking about it for the time that we've been apart here, I just came to the conclusion that you could have just as much fun watching as playing. And I think that's why video games are such an awesome interactive medium. Now, don't take away my single player experiences because that is just not at all fun. And I need those, and I play them by myself, and I don't want anybody else in the room. But it can be. That was the question I asked. It can be, and I think it is, quite frankly, a lot of fun. Okay, now I want to get to a question for next week. So I was thinking about this as I got through the week. How we collect movies over time. and what that process really looks like, you know, how it really makes us feel to have collections of things like games or movies. And it made me come up with this question that I think you guys are really going to like. I started looking through my DVDs and realizing that I have some really, really bad stuff in there too. And so that made me think of this question, which I want you guys to answer for next week. What is the worst movie in your